And then quite a lot of modeling was also carried out really to try to foresee that how the construction is affecting the nature, how this turbidity is extending from the building sites and so on before the start. So there was a really extensive dialogue with authorities. There was a lot of public consultations and of course lobbying behind and in front of the scenes. But as a result, quite a lot of changes were made compared to the original plan. So the pipeline route was changed really to avoid the most problematic areas. Also the construction methods were changed, or these practices. Compensations have been and will be paid, for example, for fishermen, because they are not able to trawl in areas where the pipeline is passing through, and a quite extensive monitoring program is carried out right now. I was able to visit this lay barge last winter, so it was pretty exciting experience. So that it was a very cold day, and it's a huge, really factory which is welding the pipelines 24 hours per day and moving something like 100 meters per day all the time. And there were something like 500 people working on board. So it was rather something. At that time, the construction was carried out just let's say between Tallinn and Helsinki, so it was not so far away from us. And actually, the pipeline looks pretty big, and you might expect that it has some impacts as well when looking at there in the factory. But then when comparing the size of the tube to the sea, so it's not so impressive anymore. While before and during the construction, quite a lot of monitoring activities were carried out, and this work is continuing. And actually, the first results have been just published, so that how it looks like in areas in so to say soft sediment areas, so that the pipe is partly buried in the sediment. But this graph is showing that in areas where the bottom topography is such that it's not really lying on the sediment, so that then additional kind of a supporting construction have been built there. And for example, this is just showing, this is a transect made during the exactly when the pipe was laid on the bottom, showing that the water transparency decreased only in rather small area around the area where the pipeline has been made. And luckily, I have to say that actually at least the first results, they show that only minor and very short-term impacts had occurred. So hopefully this is really also the final result of all these monitoring activities. So thank you.
Thank you, Juha-Markku. Well, did I miss something? But I didn't see any risk analysis. Are there any risks if something happens, and is it the risk more to the economy or to the environment? Or what?
Yeah, quite extensive risk analyses were carried out as well, but I didn't, so to say, take that on board. But all these documents, they can be found on the company's website, so that you can download and have a look on those. And also the national authorities have have all the required documents in national languages also available, including risk assessments, both to the nature and for so to say, human activities.
Thank you. Then Yuri.
Thank you, Juha-Markku, for a really nice presentation, and I especially enjoyed the title of one of your slides saying that model exercises, not modeling results. Just to remind that during environmental impact assessment, there was a strong argument between scientists of different countries and experts of different countries that the model that was used for determining the potential spatial extent of the impacts of the pipeline, that it was not validated in the bottom layers. And according to Estonian monitoring results, the assumptions used in modeling, they were wrong. The actual near-bottom flow speeds, they were at least 2 times higher than used in the model. But we are lucky that no toxic event so far, only quite significant turbidity in bottom layers. We don't know yet, is it due to natural conditions or due to pipeline, but I really enjoyed that you put on the slide the title Modeling Exercise. Thank you.
Actually, I was involved in this kind of pre-evaluation, and it was really funny that every country and every scientist group had the best possible model, and the other models were of no use.
So thank you very much. It's very interesting to listen on this, and of course you put it together with this Mexican study. So for me it's obvious that we need to have an independent science Baltic Sea panel that do assessments, and of course this was done in a good cooperation with the company, but we know also that the company was working very hard in the timetable and so on. So I think this is also an example that Baltic Sea Science Panel is needed, that regularly look into these questions and also the coming questions. So I think, and I was happy for you from this Mexico stuff that really you stated the importance of have independent assessments. So I think we should remember that.
Was your scientific committee, was it international or was it national?
Our commission was national.
Yeah, it was a national, because there was also kind of a national scientific committees in different countries, but it was quite funny that, and also very typical that for example, the Germany and Russia didn't want to take the whole issue up in HELCOM. So HELCOM was only, so to say, informed, but not allowed by some of the contracting parties really to consider it.
Okay, I'm here. I have a question concerning the process of evaluating the results. And you know, when the risk, there's a term called risk evaluation, where you sort of weigh the results and you try to you know, reason and say what is acceptable and tolerable, etc. But usually, I mean, the process is there are no clear criteria to begin with. Were there any criteria in this case? What would have been a major effect?
Yeah, actually, this in the risk assessment there was certain kind of criteria, but you are quite right that they are not criteria and for example limit values for all different parameters and these environmental aspects that could have been affected. But actually during this impact assessment procedure and risk assessment procedure, they were comparing the alternative routes and their impacts. That was one thing, and also that they were comparing the different kind of activities to different components of the ecosystem. And this was, of course, then evaluated partly internationally, because also the company organized this international discussion panels, but also nationally. So there were quite a lot of national hearings, and I also participated some events, for example, in Estonia. So it was really interesting to follow the whole process.
So this was a wide consultation, so there were others than experts in
Yes, yeah. It was really wide consultations between the authorities and public.
Juha-Markku, you said already you don't maybe recall the details of this risk analysis, but maybe you recall what is the kind of worst case scenario which is considered in the context of this pipeline, and is there a kind of, let's say, realistic or whatever idea of what happened? Is it a break of the pipeline?
Yeah, that was also
spill of a couple of days or
yeah.
whatever?
So that first of all, this is a gas pipeline. It's not an oil pipeline. So that of course methane is behaving completely differently than crude oil or whatever, this kind of a liquid in the sea. So that there were also scenarios that if the pipeline just, so to say, break down and the gas is exploding, so what kind of effects that would have both to the nature as well as, for example, ship traffic, so that if some poor ship would just be above this big bubble, so what might happen in that case? So that these kind of scenarios were also assessed, also taking into account all these safety systems, so that how to close the pipeline automatically if the pressure really decreases rapidly and so on. So this is all these scenarios are available.
Yeah. Thanks for the interesting presentation. First, to note that the budget what the company was using is about the same as the next total budget of the next bonus call, I think. so I think there is certainly a need to try to utilize this information by the scientists in the future as well, and make that process easier. But then I would like to make, if we link these two presentations together and think about the oil spill risks in the Baltic, which is mainly due to the transportation of the oil, not the production. Do you think actually that, what is your personal view, that should we have as well an oil pipeline, which is doing the transportation in addition to the gas, to get rid of the risk?
Well, if you ask my personal opinion, we shouldn't have had even this pipeline. So
yes, could any of the involved countries say no to this this pipeline and actually empower it? I understand that we should be consulted, all the countries, but there is no way for us to say no and really it has an effect. That was my first question. The second, what is a positive effect on the ecology of this pipeline? For example, a nice breeding region for fishes around the pipe, or the alternative of ships transporting this amount of gas would be very dangerous to the ecology system, etc., etc.
Yeah, actually this environmental monitoring is continuing, so that also the effects of the pipeline will be monitored also in the future. So that, for example, will there be some effects due to the warming up of the pipeline surface, or is it really affecting the bottom currents and sedimentation process in some areas and so on? But this work is continuing.